There is no easy victory for this Manchester United team. Whether defeat, draw, or victory, the team always encounters difficulties. Manchester United achieved an important victory, mainly because they hadn't won in the Premier League for a month. The team had been falling down the table, occupying a record negative position in the Premier League era, being in 15th place. Now, take a breather and move away from the relegation zone, which was a more theoretical than practical concern, as Manchester United would hardly fight against relegation. This is more due to the fragility of the teams that will be relegated than the quality of United itself. Still, it's shameful to see the club so low in the table. Now, it rises to 14th place and is tied on points with Tottenham, both with 33. Manchester United went behind on the scoreboard after just 4 minutes, after a disastrous setback by newly signed Patrick Dorgu, who joined from Lecce for around 30 million euros. I don't see Onana's fault with this move, as he could have been more centralized, but the main responsibility lies with Dorgu, who should have checked the goalkeeper's position before withdrawing the ball. The error allowed Foden to come up empty net, scoring for Ipswich Town. With that, all the ghosts of the season came back to haunt United. Even so, the team managed to turn it around. First, an own goal from Ipswich Town's Egyptian captain Sam Morsy in a bizarre move. Then, a goal from De Ligt, taking advantage of a corner with a hit and a rebound inside the area. However, in the final stretch of the first half, the same Dorgu, perhaps trying to make up for his previous mistake, committed a violent foul and received a straight red. The decision was delayed, but the card was clear. As a result, he will miss 3 games in English competition, against Fulham in the FA Cup and against Arsenal and Leicester in the Premier League. He will be able to play in the Europa League against Real Sociedad. The situation became even worse when, in first half stoppage time, Ipswich striker Liam Delap scored the equalizer. Felipe's closed cross surprised Onana, who could have done better in the play. United then went into halftime feeling in crisis, as they would play the second half with 1 player less. In the second half, the team came back calmer, still making mistakes, but controlling the game better. Even with a weak performance against a technically inferior opponent, the victory had great symbolic value. The winning goal came from a corner, scored by Harry Maguire. The team that concedes the most goals from corners in the Premier League finally scored 2 goals. About Maguire, I saw a joke that said he's a sniper's dream, due to the size of his head. But jokes aside, he represents a possible positive turnaround within United's chaos. Despite the victory, the fans' dissatisfaction with Manchester United's management was evident in the chants against the Glazer family and Jim Ratcliffe. The climate of revolt intensifies in the face of a series of unpopular decisions, such as the dismissal of hundreds of employees, the replacement of meals at the training center with more basic options, and the increase in ticket prices, making the fan experience increasingly expensive and far from the stands at Old Trafford. The Glazers, who took control of the club in 2005, have always been criticized for their management model that prioritizes owners' profits over sporting development. Over the years, they have taken more money from United than they have invested, a stark contrast to other Premier League club owners who inject capital to strengthen their teams. Between 2013 and 2023, the Glazers withdrew £177 million from the club's coffers, while rivals such as Manchester City, Newcastle, and even Chelsea under different managements received substantial financial contributions from their owners. Furthermore, the acquisition of the club itself was made through a loan, which was transferred to Manchester United's account, generating a gigantic debt that continues to this day. While fans watch a stadium in urgent need of renovation and a team struggling to compete at the highest level, the owners continue to profit at the expense of the passion of millions of fans around the world. Meanwhile, Manchester United continues to waste fortunes with million-dollar terminations and poorly planned signings, reflecting the lack of a clear strategy in the club's management. Recently, the dismissal of Erik and Dan Ashworth cost United's coffers £14.5 million, another chapter in a long list of poor decisions that weigh heavily financially. In recent years, the club has become synonymous with wasted money, whether in overvalued signings, inflated salaries, or compensation for coaches who are unable to establish themselves in their positions. Since Sir Alex Ferguson's departure in 2013, United has spent hundreds of millions on changes to the coaching staff alone, not to mention the negative impact on sporting performance. The result of this chaotic administration is reflected in the numbers. In the 2023-24 season alone, the club's financial loss reached an impressive negative £131 million, a negative record among all Premier League teams. While rivals like Manchester City and Arsenal operate with more efficiency and planning, United remains mired in administrative errors that compromise its competitiveness on and off the field. The cutting of the staff cafeteria, reducing meals to just bread and soup, symbolizes a mentality of extreme austerity that, in some ways, shaped Manchester United's identity. This episode illustrates how the club's management, especially in certain periods, prioritized strict financial control, even at the expense of internal well-being. However, this culture of resistance and sacrifice ended up being reflected on the field, where United built a history based on hard work, resilience, and a combative spirit. Even today, even in the midst of challenges and crises, the expectation is that the club will recover its identity as a fighting and winning team. Manchester United is facing a profound crisis, both sporting and financial, the result of years of management that prioritizes the financial interests of the owners to the detriment of the club's sustainable growth. Under the leadership of the Glazer family, United has become a true example of how corporate greed can erode the identity and competitiveness of a giant global football institution. Instead of reinvesting profits into infrastructure, player development, and strategic planning, the Glazers took hundreds of millions of pounds from the club, accumulating debt and leaving the team at the mercy of erratic decisions. The fans, who have been denouncing this irresponsible administration for years, continue to protest tirelessly, demanding real structural changes. Jim Ratcliffe's entry as a minority shareholder raises expectations, but also many doubts. Will he have enough autonomy to reverse the predatory model imposed by the Glazers? Will his promise to modernize the club and regain competitiveness be fulfilled, or will we just see a new chapter in the same story of neglect and mismanagement? United urgently need management that thinks long-term, establishes a clear identity, and puts football at the center of decisions. Otherwise, the crisis could deepen even further, and pressure from the fans, which has already become one of the main elements of the club's internal politics, will only increase.